Hello students. So today we will start our next topic, which is domain theory of ferromagnetism, and it is a domain theory. If you remember, the earlier theories was called as electronic theory or say Langevin theory of diamagnetism and paramagnetism. But to explain the ferromagnetism, we'll have domain theory of ferromagnetism. Okay, so we'll come to this point. So before come to this theory, first of all, again, we should be aware of ferromagnetic materials. So as we know, ferromagnetic materials are characterized by their strong attraction of magnets, and these materials shows very high degree of alignment of atomic dipoles in comparison to paramagnetic substances. Okay, so these ferromagnetic material shows all the properties as that of paramagnetic, but to a greater extent. Okay, all the properties of paramagnetic materials and ferromagnetic materials are same, but the degree up to which they show these properties, it is of greater extent. Okay, in comparison to the paramagnetic material. The ferromagnetic material is explained on the basis of domain theory suggested by Weiss. According to this theory, what is said, the atoms of this ferromagnetic materials, they get grouped together in a region. Okay, the sum of the atoms or some of the atoms of the this ferromagnetic material, they group together in a region and called domain. Okay, and within that domain, all the atoms, okay, they align themselves in a particular direction. Okay, there is strong interaction between these atoms. Okay, there is strong interaction between the atom of each domain, which give rise to the alignment of atomic dipoles in a particular direction. Okay, and such interaction in each domain is called exchange coupling, and it result into magnetic moment of the magnetic moment associated with each domain, as shown in this figure. Okay, see in this figure we have an ferromagnetic material, and in this substance, what we have considered few domains like this. Okay, these are the domains like this. These are the domains, and within this each domain, due to the interaction of atoms, so what we have, all the atoms within this domain, they align themselves in a particular direction. This is domain theory. Okay, but we see in each domain the direction of atom is different. If you see neighboring domains, then the direction of atoms which align themselves in a particular direction is different for different domain. So that if we do not have any external magnetic field, in that case the dipole moment of all individual domains, okay, dipole moments of all individual domains, okay, that you see, dipole moment of this ferromagnetic material as a whole, okay, it just get cancel out, and the dipole moment of the substance becomes zero if we do not have any external magnetic field. Okay, but when we apply some external field across this material, what will happen, these domains, okay, or the atoms within these domains, they start aligning themselves in the direction of the applied magnetic field. If we apply H, okay, if we apply this H magnetic field, then these magnetic moments within each domain, they start aligning themselves along the direction of the applied magnetic field. Okay, so the degree of alignment gets enhanced as we increase the external magnetic field. Okay, and this will get enhanced until all the domains are aligned in the direction of the applied field, and then that point when all the magnetic moments within each domain align themselves along the direction of field, that time will reach to a situation which we call it as saturation. Okay, so that point is the point of saturation. So the ferromagnetic substances gets very high value of magnetization even when they are subjected to weak fields. Okay, the magnetization approaches a saturation value for ordinary values of H. Due to the saturation of magnetization, such substances in a strong magnetizing field experience a force which is as proportional to curly H over curly Z, okay, which is in contrast to the that of diamagnetic and paramagnetic material, where the force is proportional to this value H into curly H by curly Z. And it is found that the thermal energy of molecules at ordinary temperature is much larger, 100 times larger than their magnetic potential energy even at quite high magnetic fields. And this leads to the fact that the saturation of magnetization in ferromagnetic materials can never be caused because of forces which are magnetic in origin. Okay. So every ferromagnetic material, there is one more property associated with this ferromagnetic material. Every ferromagnetic material becomes paramagnetic when its temperature is raised above a certain temperature called as Tc, okay, called as Tc, critical temperature or Curie temperature. In this range of temperature, it can no more gain intense magnetization, okay. Above this temperature, no more intense magnetization can be achieved, but below the Curie temperature, there exists what may be called the spontaneous alignment of molecular magnets. Spontaneous alignment of molecular magnets to each alignment of molecular magnets parallel to each other. By spontaneous, what we mean? By spontaneous, we mean that alignment of molecular magnets is brought about without an external magnetizing field. Okay, because initially what we said in this domain theory means we have considered that the material is consist of different domains, and within that domain, all the atoms which lies in that domain, they align themselves in a, if you remember this figure, okay, what we have considered, this is the material and this is any domain. Within this domain, we have considered all the atoms align themselves in a particular direction, and this alignment within a domain, this is a spontaneous alignment, okay. For this, we do not require any external magnetic field. This happens on their own due to the interaction of atoms, between the interaction of atoms between themselves, okay. So this individual molecular atoms of ferromagnetic material divided into large number of small regions called domains, and in each domain all the constituent dipoles align in a particular direction, okay. And in an unmagnetized piece of iron, the dipole in each of the domains are all parallel, while the dipoles in the neighboring domains are also parallel but having different orientation. This we already know, as we have seen in this figure A, okay. In a particular domain, all the atoms are aligned themselves in a particular direction and they are all parallel, okay. But in the neighboring, again they are all in same direction and parallel but having different orientation with respect to other domain, okay. This is the theory of domain theory. And on an average, all the directions represented by equally, so that the specimen has no bulk magnetization. And the division of bulk material into domain came into existence because the net potential energy for such division is smaller than in case of when all the dipoles are pointed parallel to each other. So the when magnetic field is applied to a material in a direction parallel to which the magnetic dipoles align, they possesses a minimum energy. Okay, when we apply that external magnetic field, in that case all the dipoles in a particular domain, they align themselves in the direction of field, and this happens in all the domains, okay. So they possesses a minimum energy. Thus those domains in which alignment of dipoles are parallel to the applied field as shown in figure B, okay, in this figure, okay, in this figure when we apply this external field H, in that case all the dipoles within those domains, they align themselves along the direction of field, okay. So that case will be more favored when we apply the external magnetic field. And at the boundary of these domains, the dipoles belonging to unfavored domains, they tend to shift in the favored domain, okay, and the domain having axis parallel to the magnetizing field start growing at the cost of other domains, and thereby cause the shift in the domain boundary. Okay. So this is the theory. Now we'll have the mathematical explanation or mathematical expression for this domain theory of ferromagnetism. So we assume that the overlapping of fields of molecular magnets due to their alignment in the presence of magnetizing field H is equivalent to a uniform magnetic field which have intensity equal to the intensity of magnetization and parallel to it. Okay, so therefore there is a molecular magnetic field given by, he has considered this molecular magnetic field which is equal to mu 0 gamma I. Okay, and then the effective magnetic field will be this thing B plus Bm. B is the applied field which we have applied, okay, which is mu times H. Okay, and Bm is the molecular field which exists on their own because the dipoles which align themselves in a particular domain along a particular direction. Okay, so which has happened spontaneously. So because of that there was net feeble dipole moment, magnetic moment is there. Okay, so that molecular magnetic moment, that is he considered is of this nature. Okay, this nature, that he is considered of the magnetic field, molecular magnetic field is of this nature. Bm is equal to mu 0 gamma I, but the applied magnetic field is this mu time H. So the net effective magnetic field will be this thing, B effective, which is sum of B plus Bm. Okay, and which will become this mu 0 H. B is mu 0 H and Bm is mu 0 gamma I. So this will become mu 0 H plus gamma I. Okay, so if we consider a special case for the very high temperature, the intensity of magnetization on the basis of Langevin theory of paramagnetism, okay, is given by this. We have already calculated in the in case of paramagnetism. Okay, and we are using this result here as well because we have already explained this thing. Means the very first statement of this article, we have stated that the ferromagnetic material will obey all the properties of paramagnetic material, but that to a greater extent. Okay, so because of that, from the Langevin theory of paramagnetism, we have calculated this thing. Intensity of magnetization I was n pm square B over 3 kt. So we have considered that result as it is. Okay, but in case of paramagnetism, we have just seen we do not have this B. Okay, in spite of this B, we actually have B effective. Okay, so we just replace in this relation B by B effective, and then we'll see what we will get. So the actual magnetic field for a given molecular field will be this value. Okay, so the I will become this thing, the intensity of magnetization will be this value, n pm square B effective 3 kt. Okay, so now substitute the value of this B effective from here. Okay, which is mu 0 time H plus gamma I. So this I will become this value. Okay, and now just simplify this equation. Cross multiplication of 3 kt with I, and then left hand side will be right hand side will be this value, and just simplify this equation again and again. Calculate the value of I in term of H. So what we will get, I will be this value, n pm square mu 0 H over 3 kt minus n pm square mu 0 gamma. Okay, and as we know, ultimately we need to find out the susceptibility for this material, and the susceptibility for ferromagnetic material is also defined by I by H. Okay, so now we have relation between I and H. So chi m will be I by H. So this equation will be n pm square mu 0 over 3 kt minus n pm square mu 0 gamma. Okay, so here just take out this 3k in the denominator outside. Okay, so we'll have this term n pm square mu 0 over 3k, then inside we'll get t minus n pm square mu 0 over 3k gamma. Okay, and if we combine this term n pm square mu 0 by 3k together, okay, and if you remember what was this was nothing but the Curie constant. Okay, so if you substitute this value with C, then this relation will be this. Okay, so chi m will become this value. Chi m will become this C over T minus theta, where C is this value n pm square mu 0 over 3k T and minus theta, and theta is nothing but gamma times C. Okay, which represent the Curie temperature, paramagnetic Curie temperature. Okay, so this is the relation for magnetic susceptibility for ferromagnetic material, and you can see it depends on temperature, reciprocal to temperature. Okay, this is a very important result. So now, so this equation chi m is equal to C by T minus theta represent the behavior of ferromagnetic material. Okay, so now we have two special cases. First special case is this: when the temperature T is much greater than theta. Okay, if T is much greater than theta, this gamma, the molecular field which we have considered, which was proportional to the I. Okay, if gamma is small, then definitely theta will be small. Okay, so if T is much bigger than theta, so theta can be neglected in comparison to T. So this relation chi m will be C by T, which is nothing but the paramagnetic behavior. Okay, so in that case, the ferromagnetic material will behave as an paramagnetic substance. Okay, but in other extreme, when T is less than theta, okay, the temperature is less than theta, that is the temperature of the ferromagnetic material is less than its critical temperature, okay, which is theta. Okay, so in that case, the some finite value of intensity of magnetization may exist even in the absence of external magnetic field H, and this magnetization which exists even in the absence of external magnetic field is known as spontaneous magnetization, and which is the cause of residual magnetism in the absence of magnetizing field at H is equal to 0. Okay, so this spontaneous magnetization, which is also known as residual magnetization of the material in the absence of magnetic field, okay, it exists even in the absence of magnetic field, where at temperature much less than critical temperature theta. Okay, so this is the theory of domain theory of ferromagnetism. It's a very important theory. Okay, as per your syllabus as well. So I hope you have understood this. Thank you.